We will continue with part 6 of Presumptive Sainthood, from presumption to confirmation. The path from presumptive to confirmed sainthood. Presumptive sainthood is provisional, granted at conversion, but not guaranteed to occur at the Bema. So we have been looking through the series, Presumptive Sainthood, and as you see there on the illustration, but now we're going to look at confirmed sainthood. Presumptive sainthood can be lost, confirmed, or denied based on faithfulness and fruitfulness. Mature misthology affirms to reach confirmed sainthood before death. Therefore, the illustration depicts confirmed sainthood being reached long before the top tier that occurs at death or at the Bema. So in the illustration, when you become a believer, you start in the status of presumptive sainthood. A reasonable goal would be to reach confirmed sainthood before you reach the Bema. This degree of misthological assurance is available to mature misthologists before death, but it is not automatic. Let's look at Peter's transition to confirmed sainthood. Peter speaks as one who has endured suffering and now partakes in glory. In 1 Peter 5:1 he says, "Therefore I exhort the elders among you, as your fellow heir and witness of the sufferings of Christ, and a partaker also of the glory that is to be revealed." Peter's sainthood is no longer presumptive. It is permanent and confirmed even before his death. This level of sainthood is available to mature kingdom believers after a period of suffering. Peter then goes on to say in verse 10, "And after you have suffered for a little while, the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself perfect, confirm, strengthen, and establish you." So we're wanting to look at this confirmation that Peter is describing. Paul speaks of a crown of righteousness. Toward the end of his life, Paul says, "I have fought the good fight, and the crown of righteousness awaits." Paul speaks from certainty, not hope. His sainthood is sealed. This serves as a model for mature misthologists seeking pre-death confirmation. Let's look at an illustration using the stock market to illustrate this potential. I will look at a fixed stop loss, FSL, and this is static. Think of your life like a line going up and down. Sometimes you grow, sometimes you fall. A stop loss is a safety line. It protects you from falling too far. A fixed stop loss stays in one place, and that's what we're looking at here in this illustration, a fixed stop loss, FTL. If you fall to a fixed stop loss, you are stopped as that stock cashes you out. The fixed stop loss protects you from dropping below a fixed point, but it does not grow with you. So the fixed stop loss, you see the red line going across. If your stock falls to that line, it cashes you out. So at that point, there will no longer be any progress. You reach that point and it stops. You cash out. Now let's look at the trailing stop loss, abbreviated TSL. This trailing stop loss is dynamic. After you have some growth, in this illustration we're using like in stock trading, you have some growth, and we're relating this to growth in your personal life. Set a trailing stop loss. In stock trading, you can, after the growth, you can set some trailing stop loss. This will follow your progress in the stock market. But in this, I'm using it to illustrate your growth in maturity in the Lord, particularly in your misthological understanding. A trailing stop loss moves up as you grow when you're doing stock trading. Afterward, every time your stock rises, the safety line rises with you. And what I'm posing is that we can do the same thing in our walk with the Lord. As you rise and grow in Christian maturity, if you have set a trailing stop loss, this trailing stop loss would grow with you. But if you fall, it does not go down very far. It locks in most of your progress. So as you're accumulating heavenly treasure, pictured here as trading stock, and the value of your life goes up, or the value of your heavenly treasure goes up, or the value of your stock trading goes up, I would say set a trailing stop loss so that you can prevent having a catastrophic loss. And what I'm posing is that for spiritual purposes, your trailing stop loss is saying something like, Lord, I wish you to maximize my heavenly treasure and prevent me from stumbling to the point where I have a significant loss. So if I am going to stumble to the point where I will not be able to regain my progress, please kill me prematurely. And I've prayed a prayer like that. That's a very simple summation from a much more in-depth presentation I have elsewhere. Now let's look at a mythological application of this teaching. In advanced mythology, you can ask God to set stop losses for you. A fixed stop loss to prevent you from going to the outer darkness. A trailing stop loss to protect your gains. The stop losses rise as you mature. It protects you from losing all that you have gained. But unfaithfulness becomes more dangerous in terms of potentially triggering a stop loss in the forms of premature death. In short, if you're using this technique, you've asked God to kill you with premature death if your faithfulness would either take such a plunge as to put you in danger of the outer darkness, and that would be a fixed stop loss, or if your faithfulness would ever reach a peak from which you would drop and not reach again. That would be a trailing stop loss. So I've asked the Lord for both of these things. Lord, I'd want you to take my life prematurely if I ever do anything too drastic to where I would plummet to a degree where I would be in danger of outer darkness. But more realistically, I'm trusting the Lord with a trailing stop loss. You have asked God to kill you prematurely if your faithfulness would ever reach a peak from which you would drop and not regain. The goal is to keep an overall upward trend with minor variations.
His faithfulness is about to take a severe drop from which he will not recover. Bring him home.
So this is a prayer I have prayed before. Lord, bring me home if I am going to take a severe drop in my faithfulness from which I would not recover. And I'm trusting that the Lord would do just that. The goal of mature mythology. Mythological fear guides believers toward endurance and fruitfulness. So we can have our base as a fixed stop loss, a low fixed stop loss, a trailing stop loss. I have described these things in my series on this topic. Fear can be mitigated by implementing stop losses. Strategies from my Mythological Fear and Assurance series helps believers guard their sainthood. And again, there again, you can see that series for discussion of these strategies. Confirmed sainthood is attainable before death for those who mature in holiness and implement this strategy. This assurance section builds on the YouTube series I did, Misthological Fear and Assurance. And this is a slide from that series using a trailing stop loss for heavenly stock. The key presentations therein include a problem of false assurance, fighting fear with fear, stop loss strategies for heavenly stock. So for the full exegesis and model, see that playlist. And now we'll look at the conclusion of the Presumptive Sainthood series. Presumptive Sainthood and the Call to Endure. Presumptive Sainthood motivates holiness without compromising grace. We're called to stand firm to retain your place in the reward city. All believers are positionally sanctified and presumptively qualified to inherit the kingdom. You can see Daniel 7 for the Old Testament background for that. But only the faithful ultimately shine as saints, and that's from Daniel chapter 12. So again, I'm using these illustrations. Stand firm to retain your place in the reward city. Otherwise, you would not shine and you would be cast into the outer darkness outside of the reward city. Unfaithful believers forfeit saintly reward. They do not forfeit salvation from the lake of fire. All believers, unfaithful or not, will be saved from the lake of fire. That is a free gift. The bema will separate well done from loss of reward. Stand firm to retain your place in the reward city and to eat from the tree of life. Let's look at from presumptive treasure to actual treasure. Holy ones, this is Old Testament and New Testament teaching, refers to both angels and humans. Fallen angels lost their holiness. Likewise, fallen believers lose saintly status. Fallen from grace believers remain sanctified as God's possession, but not as his treasured possession. Bridal saints alone retain saintly status and kingdom inheritance. All believers are presumptive treasure at conversion. Only the faithful are actual treasure at the bema. So you have, as here in the illustration, presumptive treasure will be tried by fire, and what is left that survives the fire, if there's anything left, will be your actual treasure. And so a mature believer could have their works tried by fire and come away with a treasure chest full of rubies, for example. So let's look at making calling and election secure. Peter exhorts believers, do your best to make your calling and election secure. Growth and perseverance in holiness confirm one's misthological sainthood. Mature believers can reach confirmed sainthood even before death. The gospel of the kingdom is the pathway to that maturity. Let's look at confirmed sainthood and the treasured bride. Bridal saints alone retain saintly status and kingdom inheritance and enter the reward city. So that's why I call the reward city, New Jerusalem, the bridal city. The faithful believers, the bride, will live there. Unfaithful believers will not live within the heavenly city. All believers are presumptive treasure at conversion. Only the faithful are actual treasure at the bema. So here in these illustrations, I show faithful believers inside the city gates, and they will be living in New Jerusalem. Unfaithful believers will be outside the city gate, And I'm showing the rivers of the water of life that flow through the city gates. Confirmed sainthood belongs to those refined by faith and crowned within the reward city. So those inside the city will have confirmed sainthood, those outside will not. Outside the walls of the reward city stand the redeemed, who forfeited glory, but not saving grace. The bride shines eternally as God's treasured possession, holy, faithful, and confirmed forever. So I'm showing those believers being inside the gate, inside the reward city, and they will be in New Jerusalem. Unfaithful believers will not. Bridal saints have the right to the tree of life inside the city. All believers can access the water of life that flows freely outside the city. And that completes this study of Presumptive Sainthood. You can see my website for other information regarding to eternal security and eternal rewards. And again, here's a reminder. This information is a very brief pictorial overview of the article on my website, Presumptive Sainthood, a misthological reward for the faithful.